Now that I've explained an overview of our services and how we typically manage our trusts, hopefully you are interested in partnering with Plan of PA. If you're interested in moving forward, I want to give you a rundown on our enrollment process. First, it typically starts with a free inquiry call with me. If I am out or not available, you can have a half-hour Q&A with one of our team members after watching these videos. To proceed from there, we need to review a copy of your trust document. If it meets our criteria and we're comfortable with it, it can be executed. That means it would have to have us named as trustee in it, and it can be signed. If you are thinking of having a trust own a piece of property, like a home or a piece of land, that is something we do need to discuss in more detail before we can accept the trust. This is because we need to ensure that there's enough money in the trust to support maintaining the property, and we need to make sure that the way the property is titled and the arrangements for how the beneficiary is living there are all in line with the requirements for the benefits that they're on. We also want to make sure that we're clear about expectations around the future of the property and any circumstances where we might need to sell it. If a trust is of a smaller value and not especially large, that can be a barrier to us accepting a trust that has a property under the trust. We don't have a minimum for trusts that we'll accept, but we need to make sure that the amount in the trust matches the intentions of the trust and also that it's worth your while with our fees. Another thing we want to note is that if you're naming us as trustee for a trust where a different trustee is resigning and we're taking over, there are some more steps involved to finalize the onboarding. This is because from a legal standpoint, there are some changes that need to be made in the documents and some steps to transfer the funds and have an accounting. So that can take a little extra time. But generally speaking, if you're just writing a new trust with your lawyer now, we would review a draft of that trust. We would give it the okay, and you would name us as trustee in your trust. At that point in time, we can sign it, and next we would move to our onboarding. For onboarding, we would take the one-time onboarding fee. You would need to sign our fee schedule and return it to us. Once those things are done, the trust representative will do the initial trust plan meeting with you. We document the family's wishes, priorities, and key contacts. We will also document logistics on how the trust will be funded. For example, if it's from an insurance payout or from an estate. This is also where, if you haven't hired care management before funding the trust, you can give input on how the trust would interact with care management in the future. So you can indicate if you would like the trust to use care management on a regular, ongoing basis as a part of the support team, or if you want the trust to only engage care management if there is an emergent need, like a change in medical status or a housing issue. Part of the initial trust plan is making sure that there is a strategy for how the money will flow into the trust when it's time for the trust to fund. We always recommend that the trust be named as a remainder beneficiary on accounts where the money is going to be passing on to the trust. Even if there is a will or estate documents, those usually have to go through probate, which is time consuming. In contrast, if you go directly to your financial institution and name the trust as remainder beneficiary with that institution on their paperwork, then the money can come into the trust much more quickly when it's time. It is very important to document all of this ahead of time. We want to be able to have this information handy as soon as the trust is going to be funding. Even if your trust is not going to be funding for many years, we do want to complete this initial trust plan now when you sign on. Typically, they like to have that conversation with the grantor, who is the person setting up the trust, and also with the beneficiary, if possible. They'll send you a form to pre-fill, and then you'll meet to discuss the contents and to finalize the documents. The care manager will also be in touch with you to gather all of the beneficiary's demographic information and benefits information. These two things allow us to open the beneficiary in our systems and have all of the information we need on file for whenever the trust is ready to fund in the future. That trust funding might be right away, or it may be many years in the future, depending on your circumstance and what you're trying to accomplish. So whenever it does fund, that's when we do our account opening steps. The account opening step is a step that happens when the trust is actually funding. So that's the point in time where we have to transfer the funds into our care. For some people, that might be right away. You might be coming to us with some money that you want to put into the trust ASAP. Or for other people, that might be for a future funded trust where the money will only be coming to us when someone passes away. When the money is going to be transferred into our care, the trust administrator will facilitate opening that account, and they will establish a budget for that money. The budget is an annual budget, and sometimes it has a lot of recurring costs because the trust may be responsible for paying many bills for the client on a regular basis. In those cases, the trust administrator sets up automations and keeps tabs on those bill payments. So in that example, the trust is sort of the main driver of a person's financial stability and pays many of their regular expenses. In other cases, the trust may mainly exist just as a backup, really to only be utilized as needed. So for those types of trusts, there might be a fairly minimal annual budget. Our trusts do also have the ability to provide a stipend to clients on a special type of card. This is called a TrueLink card. The TrueLink card has a lot of controls available on it, and it is an allowable way to give funds directly to a client. Once the trust is funded, we do review all of the aspects of the trust in a formal fashion annually. That's called the annual review. We make updates to the initial trust plan. We also update the budget. We update demographic information, and we review the status of the benefits during the annual review. Another key aspect of the annual review is that we have a discussion with our investment advisors about the investment performance of that trust. Once we have the account open, then we're just in the territory of that routine trust management that I described earlier in the video series. To cover all of the tasks that the trust administrator is doing on a regular basis in that routine trust management, that's where we charge our annual trust administration fee. That fee only starts once the trust is funded. That annual fee is calculated according to a progressive fee schedule, meaning it's kind of similar to a tax bracket, except instead of the percent getting higher as the money increases, it gets lower as the money increases. So the annual fee is a percentage of the trust. The percentage is based on the amount of assets in the trust, but it isn't just a flat percent based on the assets. The percent decreases within the size of the trust. That's what we mean by a progressive fee schedule. Let's just say you have a $750,000 trust. In that case, the first $300,000 is feed at 2.5%. The next $200,000 is feed at 2%. And from there, it continues to decrease in percentage. This allows the trust fees to change on a gradual curve as your trust is either growing in the market or being spent down. Usually that's only happening because it was the intention of the plan. So if we didn't have the progressive fee structure, instead of that gradual curve as the trust changes, you'd have kind of a dramatic step ladder of drops and raises in the fee as the trust changes. We do have a minimum fee. If a trust goes below $20,000, the most we'll ever charge is $500 annually. That's our minimum annual fee. Those are our regular trust administration fees. We take those and we break them into quarters. So every quarter, which is every 3 months, we charge 1/4 of the annual fee. We do that based on the average 3-month balance in that quarter. In addition to that cost, we have a $250 annual review fee. That's once a year. We also have a closing fee for when the trust closes, which is 1% or a minimum of $1,000. Lastly, we have an extraordinary time fee, which is the same rate as the care management rate. It's an hourly rate of $85 an hour. We typically only charge that if we're undertaking a very complicated process, like trying to sell a home. Or sometimes we use it as a tool to enforce boundaries if we have a beneficiary who is reaching out more than might be appropriate. We are very comfortable with working with all sorts of people, and we have that care management team at our disposal as well. So we exhaust a lot of options before we go to the step of charging extraordinary time, but it can sometimes be a good way to keep a structure of keeping a person within reasonable bounds of communication, where if they're going beyond that, we will charge them the extraordinary time. In those situations, we always inform people ahead of time that this is being implemented and what the guidelines are. So that is an overview of our fee schedule and our onboarding process. If you have further questions, please feel free to reach out to our main office line, and also please be aware that the trust onboarding process can be a lengthy one. especially if there are some extenuating circumstances that need to be adjusted or discussed. We thank you so much for your interest in Plan of PA. We invite you to stay in touch by joining our e-blast and keeping an eye on our website for events. We often host speaker series, and recordings of those can be found on our website. We also have our caregiver support group that anyone is welcome to attend if they are a caregiver. We also have annual events like our bowling fundraiser, and it's open to the community, and we'd love to see you there. We hope to hear from you soon.